They tell you that weakness is a flaw to be corrected with kindness, that softness is a virtue, that patience and humility are the marks of a noble soul. But look closely at the men who cling to these lies, and you will not find nobility. You will find men chained by their own indecision, men stripped of respect, men who beg for validation while pretending it does not matter to them. Weakness is not a harmless defect. It is a disease that consumes the body of a man from within, eroding his dignity, corrupting his judgment, and leaving him vulnerable to the first predator who recognizes his softness. And when a man is weak, he does not only destroy himself, he invites others to feed on him, to test him, to measure their strength against his absence of it. His life becomes a banquet, and he is the meat. The weak man believes the world will treat him gently because he treats the world gently. He imagines that kindness will breed loyalty, that honesty will be rewarded, that love will protect him. But men are not saints. They are wolves dressed as neighbors, friends, even lovers. They will smile in his face while calculating what they stand to gain by his downfall. To appear harmless is to make yourself a signal for exploitation. Those who live by weakness live as sacrifices, waiting for the altar. They convince themselves that passivity is peace, when in truth it is only surrender. And when the day comes that they are betrayed, abandoned, or humiliated, they act as if the world has committed a crime against them. No, the world has merely followed its nature and punished them for ignoring reality. Understand this. Weakness is not neutral. It does not buy you safety. It paints you in the brightest red, a target visible to every ambitious man, every manipulator, every opportunist. If you cannot fight, you will be ruled. If you cannot say no, you will be commanded. If you cannot stand alone, you will be dragged by the crowd. Weak men are not tolerated in power because they are unreliable. They lack the steel to make decisions when cruelty is necessary, and they lack the coldness to withhold mercy when it would cost too much. They are instruments that break in the hands of those who try to wield them. The weak man is discarded by kings, despised by rivals, and pitied by those who once pretended to admire him. A man must understand that power belongs only to those who dare to seize it, and to those strong enough to hold it. And strength is not measured by the weight of your body, but by the weight of your will. It is the capacity to say yes when fear claws at your throat, to say no when temptation whispers in your ear, to remain unmoved while others beg you for compromise. Strength is not in smiling through pain, it is in refusing to let pain dictate your next move. Weak men fold under pressure because they value comfort more than dominance, ease more than survival, approval more than sovereignty. That is why they can never rule. Their thrones will always be stolen before they ever sit on them. Do not think that weakness is simply a lack of muscle or courage. Weakness is in the mind. It is the craving for validation, the hunger for applause, the obsession with being liked. It is the inability to sit in silence without begging for recognition. Weak men dress themselves in virtue, in humility, in forgiveness, but it is a mask covering their cowardice. They forgive because they are afraid to confront. They are humble because they are afraid to assert. They are virtuous because they lack the courage to be dangerous. And so their lives are dictated by others, by women who do not respect them, by friends who exploit them, by rulers who discard them. They think themselves good, but they are only harmless. And to be harmless is to be worthless. When you destroy the weak man inside you, you do not become cruel for its own sake. You become immune. Immune to manipulation, immune to betrayal, immune to the traps that weakness makes irresistible. You become the kind of man who is measured not by how loudly he speaks, but by how firmly he cannot be moved. Power respects only those who can endure solitude, who can bear the weight of being hated without collapsing, who can act with cruelty when it is the only path to survival. To destroy weakness is to strip yourself of illusions, that people will stay loyal because they love you, that enemies will retreat because you plead, that fortune will bend because you prayed. None of these things will save you. Only strength, visible and undeniable, will. The weak man is a liar to himself. He says he does not care what others think, but he is enslaved by their approval. He says he wants peace, but his peace is only the absence of responsibility. He says he forgives, but in truth he is afraid to fight. And so he builds a life of self-deception, telling himself he is virtuous, while every predator sees only softness. The world is merciless with such men. They are betrayed by allies, discarded by lovers, and forgotten by history. You have seen them, men who were once filled with promise, now hunched in regret, their eyes hollow, their dignity stripped, whispering excuses about why nothing went their way. but their failure was written the moment they chose weakness over strength, comfort over conquest, softness over steel. And so, the task before you is simple. To destroy the weak man inside you is not to abandon humanity, but to embrace reality. It is to recognize that fear is more reliable than love, that appearances outweigh intentions, that betrayal is inevitable, and that morality is a costume worn by the ambitious. If you cannot abandon the weak man within you, the world will abandon you. If you cannot kill him, he will kill you. Men should either be caressed or crushed, and if you live as the weak man, you will always be the one crushed. Remember this, the strong are not admired for their kindness, but obeyed for their strength. And when the weak man dies within you, what emerges is not cruelty, but sovereignty, the clarity to command yourself and the power to command others. And yet, most men cling to weakness as though it were a shield, as though it could protect them from the storms of life. They convince themselves that submission will buy them mercy, that obedience will secure them safety, that bowing their heads will spare them the executioner's sword. But history proves otherwise. The submissive are the first to be trampled when chaos arrives, the obedient are the first to be discarded when no longer useful, and those who bow are the first to feel the blade slide across their necks. Weakness is never rewarded, it is only tolerated until it can be disposed of. The man who does not destroy his weakness from within will one day watch as the world destroys him from without. Consider how quickly people turn against the weak. A soldier who falters in battle is despised by his comrades. A ruler who hesitates in crisis is abandoned by his subjects. A lover who clings too desperately is scorned by the very one he seeks to please. Weakness attracts not love, but contempt. Men may pity the weak, but they will not follow them. Women may comfort the weak, but they will not respect them. Rivals may mock the weak, but they will not fear them. And without fear, without respect, a man holds nothing. His words carry no weight, his presence commands no silence, his life leaves no mark. He becomes a shadow, a forgotten echo, a name unworthy of memory. The world itself is built on the bones of the weak. Every empire that rose, every throne that was secured, every fortune that was made, each was constructed upon the corpses of those who could not seize what was theirs, of those who hesitated, of those who surrendered too soon. Fortune favors the bold, yes, but it despises the weak. Life itself is a river that drowns those who cannot swim, that sweeps away those who cling to the shore in fear, that crushes those who believe the current will slow for their sake. Weak men pray for calmer waters, but the river of fortune has no mercy. Only those who dive in with strength, cunning, and adaptability survive its fury. The weak are carried downstream, nameless and forgotten. To destroy the weak man inside you, you must first expose him. Strip him of his excuses, his disguises, his rationalizations. Call him out for what he truly is, a coward who hides behind words like humility, patience, forgiveness, and faith, when in truth, he is only afraid of action, afraid of conflict, afraid of rejection. He preaches virtue, not because he has mastered it, but because he is too timid to confront vice. He boasts of his moral purity, but purity is only a prison he built to excuse his paralysis. To confront him is to recognize that what you have long called decency is often only fear, and what you have called kindness is often only weakness. Until you face this, you will live as a man betrayed by his own illusions. Do not mistake this destruction for cruelty without aim. The strong man does not destroy weakness to revel in violence. He destroys it because weakness is death disguised as comfort. To purge weakness is to choose survival over collapse, clarity over delusion, sovereignty over servitude. Every man must carry the burden of cruelty at least once in his life. Cruelty toward his own softness, cruelty toward his own excuses, cruelty toward the inner voice that whispers, "Stay small, stay safe." That voice must be silenced, crushed, annihilated, for it has never once led a man to greatness. Those who listen to it die with regret. Those who kill it live with power. Understand this with absolute certainty. You cannot negotiate with weakness. You cannot reason with it, bargain with it, or train it into becoming strong. Weakness is a parasite that feeds on your energy, your ambition, your self-respect. If left alive, it will always grow back, always find another excuse, always find another way to justify its existence. There is only one answer: eradication. The weak man inside you must be executed with finality, without mercy, without hesitation. He must be crushed in silence, so completely that he cannot rise again. Only then will strength have room to take root. Only then will sovereignty become possible. And when the weak man dies, the world will look at you differently. The same eyes that once overlooked you will begin to watch. The same voices that once ignored you will begin to whisper. The same people who once dismissed you will begin to respect you, though they may never admit why, because they sense it. The weakness is gone. In its place stands a man who cannot be bent, a man who cannot be deceived, a man who does not beg for their approval. They may not love you, but they will fear you, and fear, unlike love, does not betray. Do not believe that fear is a curse. Fear is the cornerstone of order. Love is fleeting, but fear endures. The weak man resents this truth, for he longs to be loved, adored, celebrated for his kindness. But love is bound by obligation, and obligations are broken the moment they become inconvenient. Fear, however, binds men with chains they cannot escape, for it speaks directly to their survival. A man who fears you will hesitate before betraying you. A man who fears you will think twice before crossing you. A man who fears you will obey, even if he despises you. This is the power the weak man can never wield, because his softness cannot inspire fear. He pleads when he should command, he asks when he should dictate, and thus he spends his life ruled by those stronger than himself. The weak man imagines that morality will protect him, that by being good, he will shield himself from the cruelty of others. But morality is not armor, it is bait. Those who wear virtue openly invite predators to test their defenses, and when the moment comes, morality proves brittle. Appearances matter more than truth, and the weak man clings to truth as if it were a weapon. But truth does not win wars, perception does. The strong man appears virtuous while acting viciously when necessity demands it. He wears the mask of mercy, but keeps the dagger ready beneath his cloak. The weak man refuses the mask, refuses the dagger, and then wonders why he is cut down so easily. The world does not reward honesty, it rewards effectiveness. Every betrayal you will ever suffer is proof of this law. The weak man cries out when abandoned, when betrayed by allies, when discarded by those who once swore loyalty. He treats betrayal as an injustice, when in truth, it is only the nature of men revealed. Men are selfish, ungrateful, greedy for gain, and ready to flee when danger approaches. To expect loyalty from them is folly. To depend on their love is suicide. The strong man expects betrayal, prepares for it, and uses it as an opportunity to destroy rivals. The weak man expects devotion, and so he is always surprised when the knife slides between his ribs. His naivety is not innocence, it is weakness given form. Look to history, and you will see the same lesson carved into the bones of empires. Cesare Borgia secured his power through cruelty, executed swiftly and publicly, then appeared merciful once fear had already taken root. He ruled through terror, disguised as justice, and so his name commanded loyalty. But those who ruled with kindness, with hesitation, with weakness, they were devoured by conspiracies, toppled by their own subjects, erased from memory. No man remembers the gentle rulers, for gentleness leaves no monuments, no legacy, only strength, backed by calculated cruelty and sharpened cunning, endures across centuries. The weak man dies forgotten, his name erased before his bones have turned to dust. You must learn that cruelty, when used well, is not cruelty at all, it is mercy in disguise. For a ruler to hesitate in punishing betrayal, for a commander to falter in disciplining soldiers, for a man to delay in cutting out corruption, this hesitation breeds chaos. Cruelty in one swift act saves countless cruelties in the future. Weakness spares today and destroys tomorrow. When you destroy the weak man inside you, you inherit the clarity to see that hesitation is often the most brutal form of cruelty, for it allows rot to spread where a decisive strike would have saved the whole. Mercy without calculation is nothing but cowardice cloaked in virtue. Do not underestimate how weakness corrupts not only your actions but also your presence. The weak man enters a room and immediately shrinks, his posture betraying insecurity, his eyes searching for approval, his voice trembling with hesitation. Even before he speaks, he is judged. Even before he acts, he is measured. And in that instant, he has already lost. The strong man enters the same room, and though he may say little, his silence weighs heavily. His gaze unsettles, his stillness commands, his presence demands respect. The difference is not merely in action, but in essence. The weak man leaks insecurity like blood in the water, and the predators circle without hesitation. Therefore, understand that weakness is not a harmless flaw, but a signal, a beacon that announces your vulnerability to the world. When you destroy the weak man inside you, you extinguish that signal. You become unreadable, untouchable, dangerous in your calm. No one knows whether you will caress or crush, and it is this uncertainty that breeds respect. The weak man cannot comprehend this power, for he is addicted to being understood, to being transparent, to being validated. But transparency is suicide, for it reveals where to strike. The strong man masters opacity, hiding his intentions, controlling his image, ensuring that even when he is vulnerable, he appears untouchable. This is the art the weak man will never grasp, for it demands the death of his illusions. The weak man is obsessed with fairness, as if the world were a marketplace where virtue and effort are exchanged for justice and reward. He believes that if he is patient, diligent, and kind, then eventually the scales will balance in his favor. But fairness is a fiction whispered to children. In the courts of power, it does not exist. The strong man knows that nothing is given, everything must be taken. Fortune does not reward the deserving, it rewards the decisive. Men who wait for fairness die waiting, while those who act ruthlessly seize the throne, the wealth, the influence, and leave the dreamers behind to rot. The weak man cannot accept this because it condemns him. It proves that his entire life of waiting has been an act of self-betrayal. To cling to fairness is to live in permanent resentment. Weak men mutter about injustice, about how others succeed while they suffer, about how life favors the cruel. They do not realize that it is not cruelty that is rewarded, but strength. Cruelty is simply one of its weapons. The weak man cannot act decisively, cannot embrace risk, cannot endure hatred, so he disguises his paralysis as morality. He calls his cowardice virtue. He names his inaction wisdom, but all the while he envies those who possess the will he does not. And so his life becomes an endless cycle of bitterness, a quiet rot that eats him from the inside. Weakness is not only visible to others, it poisons the man who carries it, making him despise himself even as he pretends to be righteous. The weak man also clings to hope as if it were a strategy. He tells himself that things will improve, that opportunities will arrive, that people will change. Hope is his drug, numbing him to reality, allowing him to endure humiliation, betrayal, stagnation. Hope whispers that tomorrow will reward his suffering, but tomorrow is merciless. The strong man uses hope as a mask for others, not as a crutch for himself. He offers hope to control men, to pacify them, to keep them docile while he sharpens his dagger, but he does not consume it himself. He knows that hope without action is poison, and action without strength is suicide. The weak man, addicted to hope, wastes his life, waiting for a day that will never come. You must understand that the destruction of the weak man is not a single act, but a war. He will resist. He will whisper that you are enough as you are, that you do not need to change, that comfort is preferable to struggle. He will beg you to preserve him, to shield him, to excuse him, but he is not your ally, he is your executioner in disguise. Every time you obey his voice, you forfeit a piece of your sovereignty. Every time you allow him to guide you, you abandon the throne of your own life. The weak man must be treated as you would treat a traitor, eliminated swiftly, decisively, without hesitation. For there is no greater betrayal than the betrayal of your own potential. Look at the men who rise to power, who carve their names into history. They did not do so by preserving weakness. They did so by shedding it like dead skin, by discarding illusions, by embracing necessity even when it demanded cruelty. The Medici did not build their dynasty by being fair. They manipulated, schemed, and killed when required. Julius Caesar did not cross the Rubicon because he hoped things would change. He crossed it because he chose to make them change. Alexander did not conquer by waiting for loyalty. He conquered by imposing fear, by making betrayal unthinkable. Weak men admire these figures but do not understand them, for to admire strength while clinging to weakness is to worship a god you refuse to serve. The weak man inside you is not merely a flaw. He is your greatest enemy. He is the one who makes excuses, who delays decisions, who avoids confrontation, who fears rejection more than insignificance. And every time you obey him, you train yourself to lose. The destruction of this enemy is not optional. It is the price of sovereignty. Until you kill him, you will never stand as your own ruler. You will remain a servant, even if no chains are visible. Remember this: A man ruled by his weakness is already enslaved. Even if he wears no collar, even if he kneels to no master, his prison is within, and it is far more brutal than any prison built of stone. And when the weak man is finally silenced, you will feel the difference instantly. The hesitation that once held you back will be gone. The fear that once paralyzed you will become fuel. The craving for validation that once consumed you will dissolve, replaced by an indifference sharper than any sword. You will no longer ask for fairness, no longer wait for hope, no longer beg for recognition. You will act, you will seize, you will command, and the world, whether it admits it or not, will bend before you. For the destruction of the weak man is not only the death of an enemy, it is the birth of a ruler. The weak man dreams of comfort, but comfort is the furnace that forges his chains. He seeks softness in every corner of life. Soft beds, soft words, soft companions who will never confront his inadequacy. He thinks that avoiding hardship is freedom, but in truth it is enslavement to his own fear. A man who avoids struggle does not avoid pain. He only ensures that when pain arrives, it will destroy him utterly. For suffering is not an enemy to be escaped, but a weapon to be wielded. The strong man embraces hardship because he knows it strengthens his will, sharpens his cunning, hardens his resolve. But the weak man flees from it, and in fleeing, he becomes smaller with every step, until there is nothing left of him but a trembling shadow. The weak man also clings to pleasure as though it were purpose. He consumes endlessly food, distraction, lust, the hollow applause of others, and he mistakes indulgence for fulfillment. Pleasure for him is not a reward but a drug, dulling the voice that tells him he has failed to become what he could be. The more he indulges, the weaker he becomes, for discipline is the marrow of strength, and without it, a man dissolves into appetites. The strong man controls his desires, the weak man is controlled by them. He cannot resist temptation, and so he is ruled not only by stronger men, but also by his own cravings. He is not sovereign, he is a slave wearing the costume of freedom. Understand that to destroy the weak man within you, you must declare war on comfort and pleasure when they arrive unearned. Rest is only valuable after conquest. Pleasure is only powerful after discipline. To enjoy them without first seizing power is to poison yourself slowly, to rot from within while convincing yourself that you are thriving. This is the greatest lie of the weak man. He tells himself he is happy, when in truth, he is only numb. He tells himself he is content, when in truth, he is only defeated. Happiness for the weak is not joy, it is sedation, a quiet drowning of ambition beneath a blanket of distraction. The weak man also fears solitude, for in silence he must confront himself. He surrounds himself with noise, with chatter, with company that demands nothing of him. He clings to crowds, to the herd, to the comfort of anonymity. But crowds cannot save him, for crowds devour their own. The strong man learns to endure solitude, to sit with himself without flinching, to hear his own thoughts and not run from them. Solitude is the crucible in which sovereignty is forged, but the weak man avoids it, because in solitude he hears the verdict of his own failure. He avoids mirrors, avoids silence, avoids truth, and in doing so, he ensures that he will never know himself, and therefore never rule himself. And this is the essence of strength, self-rule. A man who cannot govern himself cannot govern others. The weak man is governed by appetite, by fear, by the judgment of the crowd. He reacts instead of decides. He surrenders instead of commands. His life is not his own. It belongs to everyone around him. His lovers own his dignity. His peers own his opinions. His enemies own his fear. He imagines himself free because no chains are visible, but he is bound tighter than any prisoner. The strong man is free not because the world spares him, but because he spares nothing within himself. He has silenced weakness, mastered desire, endured solitude, and embraced necessity. He rules himself absolutely, and therefore no one else can rule him. You must see that the weak man is not only an enemy to himself, but a danger to all who depend on him. A weak father cannot protect his family. A weak leader cannot defend his people. A weak friend cannot be trusted in danger. His weakness infects everything it touches, like rot spreading through timber until the whole structure collapses. And when collapse comes, he will beg for forgiveness, plead that he meant well, that his heart was pure. But intentions mean nothing when the walls are burning. Weakness does not excuse failure, it guarantees it. This is why the weak man must be destroyed, because his very existence is betrayal disguised as innocence. When you kill the weak man inside you, you inherit a clarity few will ever know. You no longer chase comfort, you endure pain as fuel. You no longer drown in pleasure, you consume it with discipline. You no longer fear solitude, you rule it as your kingdom. You no longer beg for fairness, you impose order by strength. And in this transformation, you cease to be a victim of the world and become its architect. Weakness dies, and in its place rises sovereignty. This is the law that men refuse to face. You cannot be both weak and free. You must choose, and if you do not choose, the world will choose for you. It will strip you bare, expose your weakness, and crush you underfoot. Only those who destroy weakness within can stand tall without. The weak man believes that words will save him, that if he explains himself enough, justifies himself enough, pleads eloquently enough, others will grant him mercy. He thinks language is a refuge. But words without strength are noise, and noise does not command, it irritates. The more he speaks, the more he reveals, the more ammunition he gives to those who seek to use him. He tries to convince where he should command, tries to confess where he should conceal, and in doing so he strips himself bare before his enemies. The strong man knows that silence is often the sharpest blade. He speaks rarely, decisively, and with weight. His words land like verdicts, not arguments. The weak man pours out language in desperation, and with every syllable he grows smaller. Observe how the weak man reacts to conflict. He panics at confrontation, lowers his gaze, offers excuses. He cannot endure the tension of hostility. He seeks to appease, to soothe, to bargain, but bargaining from weakness is surrender disguised as negotiation. He gives away his dignity to buy scraps of approval. The strong man thrives in conflict. He does not flinch when attacked. He studies. He does not panic when betrayed. He prepares. He does not beg for reconciliation. He punishes until betrayal is unthinkable. Where the weak man fears the storm, the strong man becomes it. Conflict reveals the truth of men, and in every test the weak man proves himself prey. Weakness also shows itself in the obsession with belonging. The weak man cannot endure exile, cannot bear the thought of rejection, cannot imagine life outside the herd. He will betray his own convictions, abandon his own judgment, deny his own dignity, so long as he can remain accepted. Acceptance is his drug, and he will pay for it with his sovereignty. But exile is the price every ruler must be willing to pay. The strong man does not fear standing alone, he fears only the loss of his command over himself. He knows that solitude is often the path to power, and that isolation purifies a man, stripping him of illusions, hardening him against the need for applause. The weak man cannot survive without others to affirm him, and so he never becomes more than their servant. Remember this: appearances are more powerful than truth. The weak man demands to be seen for who he really is, but no one cares who he really is. Men judge with their eyes, not their hands. Perception is reality. The strong man bends this law to his advantage. He cultivates an image of control, of danger, of inevitability. He appears merciful when it serves, ruthless when it terrifies, devout when it comforts, cunning when it protects him. The weak man, refusing to wear masks, reveals his nakedness and then curses the world for not respecting him. But respect is not given for truth, it is given for power, and power rests on the mastery of appearances. The weak man's honesty becomes his noose, his transparency the window through which enemies fire their arrows. Even in private, weakness corrodes. The weak man indulges thoughts that disarm him, doubts that paralyze him, fantasies that keep him asleep. He forgives himself too easily, excuses himself too often, tolerates his own failure until it becomes his second skin. He convinces himself that tomorrow he will be stronger, tomorrow he will change, tomorrow he will conquer, but tomorrow never comes. The strong man demands from himself what others fear to demand. He punishes his own laziness, interrogates his own excuses, and confronts his own cowardice without flinching. He does not postpone his sovereignty. He seizes it now, because he knows delay is decay, and decay belongs to the weak. This is why weakness must be destroyed, not gradually, but ruthlessly. It must be exposed, condemned, and executed as the traitor it is. If you leave it breathing, it will rise again. If you show it mercy, it will exploit you. If you excuse it, it will own you. A single act of weakness can undo a decade of strength, just as a single hesitation can cost a kingdom. Men who underestimate their weakness are devoured by it. Men who tolerate it become its slaves. Only those who kill it without hesitation ascend to the level where sovereignty is not a dream but a fact. Weakness must be crushed completely, until even the memory of it is intolerable. And when this execution is complete, when the weak man has been eradicated, a transformation takes place that cannot be faked. Your silence becomes heavier, your presence more commanding, your enemies more cautious. You no longer explain, you dictate. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer bow, you are bowed to. This is not arrogance, it is the natural order restored. For men are not equal, and they never will be. The strong rule, the weak are ruled. Destroy the weak man inside you, or the world will destroy you in his place. That is the law written in the marrow of history, and there is no escape from it. The weak man still whispers that to be feared is to be hated, that cruelty will isolate you, that hardness will strip you of love. He begs you to believe that gentleness is safer, that compromise will keep you secure, that kindness will win loyalty. But history is not written by the gentle, it is carved by men who dared to be feared. Hatred can be avoided with prudence, but fear guarantees obedience. And obedience, not love, is the foundation of rule. The weak man cannot accept this because he confuses affection with power, but affection is fickle. It vanishes at the first sign of danger. Fear endures because fear does not appeal to preference, it appeals to survival. A man who fears you will not betray you lightly, for betrayal would be his ruin. Love fails, but fear never fails. The weak man hopes to be remembered for his goodness, but goodness is forgotten. Men do not carve statues for the kind, they carve them for the strong. The memory of goodness dies with those who benefited from it, but the memory of power lingers for centuries. Weak rulers vanish into dust, while strong rulers, whether loved or hated, are immortalized. To choose weakness in the hope of being remembered kindly is to guarantee that you will not be remembered at all. The strong understand that legacy is not built on approval but on domination, not on being liked but on being undeniable. A man who destroys the weak within himself ceases to beg for remembrance. He ensures it. Even in death, the difference remains. The weak man dies quietly, forgotten, his life reduced to the echoes of apologies and excuses. He leaves nothing behind but the memory of his softness, which dissolves quickly in the tide of history. But the strong man dies as a pillar that others are forced to acknowledge. His enemies curse him, his allies revere him, his name is spoken with weight. He may not be loved, but he is never ignored. The destruction of weakness makes this possible. Without it, you are a footnote. With it, you are a monument. Every man must choose to die as dust or to die as stone. Weakness ensures the first. Strength guarantees the second. And understand this final truth. The weak man inside you will never stop resisting. Even now, as you hear these words, he claws for survival. He tells you this path is too harsh, too cold, too ruthless. He whispers that you can compromise, that you can preserve a piece of him and still live as a ruler. But compromise is his last weapon. If you allow him even a fragment of your soul, he will rebuild himself and drag you back into chains. He cannot be tamed, he cannot be reasoned with, he cannot be contained. He must be eradicated completely. Only then does the world bend. Only then does sovereignty become more than a dream. Only then does the throne within you become yours without rival. This is the law. Destroy the weak man inside you, or the world will destroy you in his place. Men should either be caressed or crushed, and if you allow weakness to live, you will always be the one crushed. Weakness will strip you of respect, of power, of dignity, until nothing remains but regret. But if you kill it, if you burn it from your soul with ruthless clarity, you will rise as something untouchable. A man who cannot be manipulated, a man who cannot be bent, a man who cannot be ignored. That man does not chase validation, he commands fear. He does not beg for fairness, he dictates order. He does not hope for respect, he demands it by his very presence. Now the verdict is yours. You can choose to protect your weakness, cradle it, excuse it, and watch as it strangles your life in silence. Or you can choose to destroy it, to seize the knife and cut it out of you without hesitation. One path leads to anonymity, to betrayal, to ruin. The other leads to sovereignty, to fear, to power. Every man must decide which death he prefers, the slow death of weakness or the violent rebirth of strength. And once you decide, there is no turning back. The execution must be final. The fire must burn until nothing remains. Then, and only then, will the weak man be gone, and the sovereign will stand in his place. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you is already ready for this new path. A part of you has already understood that being loved means nothing if it requires abandoning yourself. True self-love begins the moment you choose yourself, even if it costs you being alone for a while. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, even hated in the name of your inner freedom? Are you willing to pay the price of being you? If this message touched you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I choose my peace. Let's see how many here are truly ready for this transition. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It's important. Much more than you imagine. See you there.